Good evening and welcome to Special Assignment. I'm Ashraf Garda. Despite the promulgation of the Mine Health and Safety Regulation in South Africa, mines still have high rates of occupational health diseases, such as silicosis. More cases continue to be reported, but some mine workers leave without even knowing their health status, because the disease can take up to 10 years to manifest. This week on Special Assignment, we bring you the story of two former mine workers in Welkom who were diagnosed with silicosis while working underground for years and believe that they have not been adequately compensated for their illnesses. Lavan Lusenga has the story.
For decades, mines continued to sustain the economy of this country, but at the same time, the workers themselves got the raw end of the deal. Thousands of mine workers who contract silicosis due to high dust levels underground are condemned to a lifelong illness, and to date, the industry and the state are yet to find a lasting solution. This is the Mashiane residence in the township of Tabong in Welkom, Free State. It's 5 a.m. Tuesday morning.
Ke Nasello Mashia ya dula mona Welkom Tabong Sports Center, Mikhukhung ya Sports Center. Ke bana ba bane ke nna le mme re tshiletse.
In 2007, Silo Mashiane was diagnosed with silicosis after working in the mine for 34 years.
Dula ba bohloko bana jwale wa utlwa bana ba le dikolong ga patala dikolo fees ntho tsena kaofela. Jwale ga utlwa re kgathatseha gona jwale a se re sa sebetse re ba patalla ka eng.
One of Silo's 6 children is getting ready for school. There are no luxuries here, no running water, no electricity. The family relies on Silo as the sole breadwinner.
Ile ha ba nkisa metjhineng jwale ba se ba nlokisetsa hore ke tsamaye ke tle hae. Re tseba hore lefu leno le teng ntse le tshwara ba bangata ba ntse re sebetsa le bona. Fela jwale ne ke sa tsebe hore na se ntshwere. Mme a se mosebetsi hobane ke o ntsa sebetsa malapeng makitjheneng ka matsatsinyana ma ke PCO a se go a sebetsa.
When Silo contracted silicosis, he was given 39,000 rand compensation while working in the mine. Having been a breadwinner and now unemployed, he decided to go back to look for work.
Okay.
But his lungs were in poor condition and he was told to stop working yet again. He was then paid 49,000 rand for almost 4 decades of service to the mine. But was this enough? Professor Tony Davis is a lung disease expert with the National Institute for Occupational Health. He's done extensive research on the cause and effects of silicosis on mine workers over the years.
In this business is that silicosis is a scarring of the lung due to the inhalation of very small particles of quartz or silicon dioxide or silica. In many cases, the patient wouldn't even know he had silicosis unless someone x-rayed him. But when you x-ray lots of miners, you find that although a proportion of them do not have any symptoms and do not have any serious trouble in their lungs, many of them have complications. And we're only just now beginning to realize that the death rate in former mine workers is probably very, very high from tuberculosis, right? Remember, a lot of them also have HIV, right? So the latest studies which have been done on miners who've gone back to Lesotho from a large gold mine, they were retrenched, they weren't sick. They have got very high prevalences of tuberculosis, silicosis, or airways disease.
Statistics released by the Department of Minerals and Resources show that over the years, cases of silicosis have seen a steady increase. Silo now pours his heart into his vegetable garden. At age 65, he knows that his chances to get work are very slim.
Una sa kgone ho etsa letho ka motlong a sa kgone ho tsamaya nako e telele re sa tsebe go tshwere keng.
Coming up, another ex-mine worker struggles with his disease.
We found another former mine worker here in Tabong who was also diagnosed with silicosis.
Ke ramuka se mabeya o ke tswaletswe teng ha ile hantle ke tswaletswe Lesotho ka tla mona ka mosebetsi ka 85 ke tlo sebetsa di mine mona Freestata mona South Africa ke dula le mosadi wa ka mona bana ba ka ba ntse ba tla ba ntshakela ma ba dula kwa Lesotho.
Unlike Silo Mashiane, Ramokasi was diagnosed 10 years after he was retrenched from the mine. We followed him to his doctor's appointment.
Ba o isa sepetlele sa bona ba o kenya x-ray ba o fumana gona le bolwetsi bo jwale ba no ha ba o amoele hape hore go khukele underground hape o sebetse.
Silo needs to go for regular checkups for his high blood pressure that is caused by his silicosis. He's unemployed and he has to count his last cents to pay for these doctor's visits.
Ba o bolela hore ha bo phekolei. Ke kry-a mathata go se ka fumana mosebetsi ka tsela ya bona bolwetsi bo.
Silo was also diagnosed with TB. It's another side effect of silicosis.
A ke go bala mo ke a fufulelwa ke dula ke khohlela jwale ke tshela di khohlela.
Silo contracts TB repeatedly every other year. This weakens his lungs every time. The road to recovery is long and most of the damage to his lungs is irreversible. Currently, there is no treatment for silicosis. Silo is told that he can only be treated for TB.
He was only discovered with silicosis in 2009 initially, and it was discovered again in 2011 and was found to be having a first-degree silicosis. And this is in terms of the act, he is commissible as a first degree silicosis, which means the lungs are damaged up to about 40%. Okay. Just take a deep breath in. Okay. So how okay. His function is still good. He can still work in the mines, but it can get worse. Once it goes to a second degree silicosis, then he won't be able to work again in the mines. Okay.
Both Silo and Ramokasi worked for the same mine, which was bought by Harmony Gold in 2008. Special Assignment contacted Harmony Gold for comment. They referred us to the Chamber of Mines.
There is some litigation or threatened litigation in some areas regarding silicosis. And I think because most of what companies do really around dust control is fairly common, I think that's why then they would feel that it's appropriate that a central organization like the Chamber can speak, because it's more the principles. It's not the specifics, of the individual cases that one is talking to at the moment.
Tutula Balfour Kuiper says a review of the Occupational Health Act is long overdue.
A huge burden that we have. The compensation is based on this particular piece of legislation, which we are saying has got innately, inadequate benefits. It means really almost everyone who has been compensated, what they were compensated was not adequate. So it's difficult, though, to say now that the legislation was inadequate, what should be done going forward. But I think it's the types of things that are and will be under discussion.
In 2003, government pledged to eliminate silicosis by 2013. Another challenge was to create awareness around silicosis, which mine workers themselves seem to know very little about. Over the years, attempts have been made by various groups to get compensation, and one of the most defining was in 2006, when a mine worker from Anglo Gold Ashanti, Thembekile Mankai, challenged the company before the Constitutional Court to compensate him after he contracted silicosis. The Legal Resources Centre provides free legal services to, among others, former mine workers who have contracted silicosis and want to get compensation. Sai Nindi has taken on the cases of Silo and Ramokasi and 16 other former mine workers.
The Legal Resources Centre is representing 18 plaintiffs from various different regions, Lesotho, Eastern Cape, and the Free State. Most of the clients who are diagnosed with silicosis are susceptible to contracting tuberculosis. So when they go home to these remote areas, you find that there aren't any proper facilities to treat them for tuberculosis. So they contract silicotuberculosis. We have a number of clients who, after diagnosis, were still sent back to work at the mines. Some of the problems that we face with these clients is that most of them are not even aware of their rights, that they have the right to institute the kind of proceedings that we have.
The Department of Mineral Resources acknowledges that silicosis is still a big problem. They highlight the need to decrease dust levels in mines.
we are seeing on average about 1,500 cases that have been reported to us. Because in terms of the law, the mines must on an annual basis report the number of cases of silicosis cases and other related diseases that they have determined when they are doing their medical surveillance with the department.
The department also agrees that compensation for sick mine workers is currently inadequate, particularly as it compares to similar claims in other industries.
We as an industry, we are also concerned with the levels of compensation, and hence some of the ex-employees are taking some of the mining companies to court because of that. But what we should actually strive for, especially with compensation, obviously we have to work together with the relevant departments, Department of Health and Department of Labor and the other stakeholders to see how do we improve, where necessary, the levels of compensation. Because 39,000 after working for let's say 20 years for a mine, I think it might not help that person, especially if they are unemployed and they have to raise children as well and they live their life as well.
So is there hope to eradicate this problem? We'll find out after this.
But before I start, I'm actually saying that a similar problem.
Late last year, a conference was held in Boksburg to discuss ways to eliminate silicosis in non-mining industries.
In terms of risk management, one of the very important things that we need to do is understand our business and all those loss exposures, including occupational exposures like silicosis, asbestosis, and all those other work-related or occupational-related illnesses that people are being exposed to. So my central message was that we need to be proactive in terms of preventing these things from happening rather than reactive and diagnose people once they have the illness already. They must be proactive in preventing their employees being exposed to those hazards and implement controls. Government can never police the implementation of systems to prevent people being exposed. The onus is on individual organizations to have that commitment to protect their employees to exposure of health hazards.
The mining industry has been slow to respond to the increasing levels of dust underground. This leaves mine workers exposed to serious health risks. But who must ultimately be held responsible for their health and safety?
We have to make sure that moving forward, we're working together with the other stakeholders. We have to prevent exposure to dust that creates either silica and or TB, because overexposure to dust sometimes, it also exacerbates the TB cases within the sector.
As mine workers begin to realize their rights, more pressure is being put on mining companies and the government to get their act together.
But what we are hoping to achieve is that a massive compensation scheme be formed by the mining companies to compensate all ex-miners who have been diagnosed with silicosis. And so that this compensation scheme would compensate not only the actual ex-miners, but also you find that most of them have passed away, so the ex-miners' family members as well.
One, I suppose, will always find some organizations that don't follow their own policies, their own procedures as per the requirement in terms of the Occupational Health and Safety Act and all the different regulations contained in there.
Even though the Labour Department is taking the initiative, which we are happy with, I believe they could have done so at a much earlier stage.
The repeal of the legislation is really long overdue. In 1999, I think government realized that there was a need to do something about, at that time they were talking about merging the two compensation systems that we have. And there were there was a lot of activity regarding that, but somewhere along the line, it seemed to it's no longer being actively pursued by government, let me put it like that. So at the moment, we are having initial talks with the unions to see how we can, try and get this back on the agenda politically so that something can get done.
In the meantime, Silo has to find a way to survive while fighting for more compensation. He shares this fate with thousands other former mine workers, particularly in rural areas. But for now, Silo's main concern is to stay healthy. And this is no easy feat. Fighting a disease that's incurable.
Well, I'm sure you have strong views on this, and you can tweet about it under the hashtag Special Assignment. You can also Facebook or email us. And you also have a chance to call in on this matter on my radio show. That's on SAFM Radio on Friday just after 2 p.m. Well, now on to comments about last week's program on whether Correctional Services is serious about rehabilitation. Jabi Dladla wrote on Facebook, "They will give people more reasons to steal. I say nope, let them pay for their sins. No TV, watch once per week." And Benny Mondile said, "I watched as if I'm watching correctional hotel movie featuring Queen Latifah. You now wonder why these facilities are always packed." Well, there's been a positive development for the inmates at Pollsmoor. After the story was flighted, the Correctional Services Department reversed its decision to terminate the Prison Broadcast Network program. Remember that you have the opportunity to get another viewing of the show and previous ones on the SABC News website. That's sabc.co.za/news. That's it from me. Join us again next week when we point out the issues that matter.